While Last Night in Soho isn't a great masterpiece that I hoped it would be, it is still well worth your time to check it out. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name's Drew and welcome to another review video on Flying Wiener. I'm talking about Last Night in Soho, which is Edgar Wright's most recent film. Full disclosure, I am a big fan of Edgar Wright, and Shaun of the Dead is probably one of my favourite films of all time. I do believe it would be in a top list if I ever made one. I just love that film a lot, and many of his other films I really like as well. But that I would say is my favourite, just so that you know where I'm at with Edgar Wright. But Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is another favourite. So yeah, he's done a lot of great work. I was really curious to check out Last Night in Soho. I'll admit I didn't know anything about the film. It wasn't even on my radar until just a few weeks ago. I saw that people were starting to talk about it, about their excitement, people that had already seen it in some kind of pre-screening or so. A lot of people saying a lot of good things about it. So I thought, well, again, I'm a fan of Edgar Wright, so I thought, well, I have to go and check out this film, which I did. Now, if you're not too sure what the film is about, I went in without knowing anything, but I will admit I'm a sucker for a really good poster, and Last Night in Soho definitely has one. So regardless of what time a film is from, if it's got a good poster, that already gets me interested immediately. So posters, film posters, absolutely do work with me in that way. What is the film about? Well, as per usual, I don't want to spoil too much. But the general gist of it is that we are following Ellie, who moves from Cornwall to London. She is played by Thomasin McKenzie. She wants to become a fashion designer, so she joins the university in London for fashion. And she is the country bumpkin, so she is basically, you know, she's coming into the big city. She's been warned about it by a grandmother, not really knowing a lot about it, you know, being rather innocent, I'll call it. And so she discovers whole new facets of life. What makes this film a bit more interesting, I'll call it, because the rest is something we have seen before, I suppose, is that Ellie, she has this ability where she is able to relive memories of the person whose room she's in. So she rents a room in London that used to belong to a woman called Sandy, who lived in the 60s, and every time Ellie goes to bed and falls asleep, she relives Sandy's memories. And it's this beautiful image of 60s London, and you have all the nightlife that's going on there. The story goes from there. I won't describe much more than that, but she gets more and more involved in Sandy's memories, as you can imagine, and she gets really concerned as well about it, because unfortunately things do take a bit of a dark turn. So I won't tell you more about the story in that sense, what actually happens, but just to let you know that the film is tagged as a sort of psychological thriller. I've seen it tagged as a horror film as well in parts, and while I suppose it does have horror elements in it, I don't feel it is a typical horror film. Yeah, you have some really tense moments, but I feel that a psychological thriller is a more fitting description of what the film actually is. My overall feeling of this film is, and this will sound probably a bit weird, was very similar to my reception of Eternals. So obviously these are two very separate films. They've got nothing in common in terms of story and what they are about. But Last Night in Soho, to me as well, had the problem of having a really good first half that I enjoyed thoroughly. There was so much about it that I really loved, but the second half didn't quite live up to that first half, I feel, so it kind of fell off in terms of the story mainly. Because one thing I do really want to talk about is this first half, because we are joining Sandy in the 60s London. She is played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who was in The Queen's Gambit, which I talked about already on the channel. If you haven't seen that, you should check that out. And we see this nightlife, and it's really exciting. Of course, Sandy herself, she wants to become a singer, so she wants to make it big in the London night scene. She meets this guy played by Matt Smith, who is a manager. He manages all sorts of girls who are in show business. And so we see the two of them developing a relationship and what happens there. And it's all really exciting. The colours are great, it's all very vibrant. I'll be honest, I don't really care for the 60s. Like neither the fashion nor the music. I'm not really into the 60s. But the images that Edgar Wright conjured here really immediately made me, you know, just grab my wife and go out in 60s London. That's how vibrant and exciting it all looked. And the music itself, a really great fit. So I really like what Edgar Wright has done here. We have some sort of, while there are no psychedelic elements in the story, we have images that look very psychedelic. You know, that's when we're really deep into this nightlife and the clubs, etc. And just really great imagery. So I really loved everything around it, and the colours and the outfits, all of it, really well done. While researching after I concluded recording this video, I saw that Edgar Wright actually intended us to feel nostalgic about the 60s because he wanted to highlight this thing that we all have where even if we didn't live through a period, we somehow romanticize it. And it is exactly what happened to me. I've never been to the 60s, but I wanted to go there immediately. And he wanted to show how dangerous this kind of nostalgia is, so I must admit I fell right into his trap. It falls off in the second half due to this sort of supernatural element, I'll call it, and it is what enhances the first half, but where it's taken in the second half just didn't really sit right with me, and I didn't really like it. While I enjoyed these sort of slightly horror aspects that crept into it, it didn't feel satisfying just the way that the story concluded. So I feel that it could have gone in a different way. Edgar Wright came up with the story together with Krysty Wilson-Cairns, who also co-wrote 1917, which is a film that I really liked, also reviewed already for the channel. So we have two people who are really good at writing these stories, but somehow it just, to me, didn't come together in the end. And that is the only bad thing I can really say about the film, is just that the story just didn't have a satisfying conclusion for me. But the imagery is wonderful, just all the camera work that goes with it. We have some really, really great shots here, showing that Edgar Wright is really a masterful director as well. And the actors are another really high point of this film. So I've already mentioned Thomasin McKenzie, her and Anya Taylor-Joy, as you can imagine, those are the two main roles, and both really wonderful. Thomasin McKenzie, I feel, is a really great fit because she's very soft-spoken. So we have, again, just to remind you, so she comes from the country into London, and she's warned, this is a theme in the film as well, you know, London's bad. And she just fits that role so well because she's so innocent coming into this, and the more she journeys through 60s London, the more we also see her character change in her demeanour, in her outfits and everything, and just her eyes are really powerful in most of the scenes. Same with Anya Taylor-Joy, so both actresses really managed to capture you just with their eyes, and the transformation that Thomasin McKenzie's character goes through is really great to watch. You've got Matt Smith, and I really like him. I love his take on Doctor Who, one of my favourite Doctors in fact, and here his character has got some really, really dark tones to him. It was really exciting to see him do something else than just the goody two-shoes, I'll call it that, I am used to seeing from him. Really great performance. One thing that's really interesting is you have Terence Stamp in this film as well. It was quite funny. Immediately as soon as I saw him, due to the fact that his hair is about shoulder length, I immediately had an image of Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker in my mind and thought to myself, these two could really play father and son in a film because, I don't know, they somehow have some facial features that are rather similar. That was just such a striking image. Completely random and off topic here, but that was something that really stuck in my mind throughout the film. Every time he popped up, I was like, wait, he really looks like him. So funny. Another really fun thing is Ellie, she starts working in a pub at one point during the film, and it's an Irish pub, and the landlady, I was sitting thinking to myself, she looks really familiar. Where have I seen her before? Until it dawned on me, it's Mrs. Doyle from Father Ted. If you don't know Father Ted and you like comedy that is from Britain or Ireland, you should really check out Father Ted. It's quite a classic. It's quite old now. I think it's 2 decades old roughly, but it is really good. So that was really fun seeing Pauline McLynn in the film because I haven't seen her in anything since Father Ted, so that was really surprising. Ellie, she's also got one friend, another fashion student who tries to help her out, notices that she's going through some trouble because you have others who are making fun of her just because she's in love with the 60s and dresses that way and all these things. So you've got a few that make fun of her. You've got one guy who's played by Michael Agenor. He really takes a liking to her, not because she's being picked on by others, but generally just because he likes her. And he also does a great job, you know, just portraying this person who can see that someone's really sort of slowly losing their mind, but still trying to help her out as best as he can. So yes, overall the actors really help a lot to make this film as good as it is. And Again, the only part I feel where it just doesn't hold up is the conclusion to the story. So I would wish in a parallel universe that would be tweaked just a little bit, but otherwise a really good film. I highly recommend that you watch it if you can, just for that really brilliant first half alone, because it's just, like I say, it's so vibrant. These images we have of the 60s and what it must have been like, really entertaining to watch. So I'm really glad, because like I say, this film to me, it came out of the blue, didn't know anything about it, went in knowing nothing, came out really liking it. So that is great when you have a surprise like that, because obviously it's not nice coming out of the cinema not liking a film. So yes, if you can, do watch it. I feel that it's only going to have quite a limited release. It's kind of flying under the radar, I suppose, with all sorts of films coming out right now. So if you can, really go and watch it, because these kind of films really need to be supported. We all go and watch the big superhero films, but these films are also quite what it's about, I feel. And I thought I was going to call it a sort of small independent film at first, until I saw it's got a huge budget of $43 million. Now, I understand, having seen the film, where that money went. It's quite obvious. Still, it's quite surprising. I do hope that it's financially successful, because it really deserves to be. Okay, those are my thoughts on Last Night in Soho. Have you seen the film? Are you going to see the film? Did I make you interested to go and see it? Leave me comments about any of those things down below. I would enjoy a conversation about this film, because I feel it's really interesting. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. It's the best way to support the channel. I would appreciate it very much. And I will see you in the next video on Flying Wiener. Take care. Bye.